Good afternoon, everybody. Council member or vice mayor, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Mayor. How about yourself?
Not too bad. I got a note from Council member Rogers that she'll be just a little bit late. So let's go ahead and get started. Tasha, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Doing well. Let's go ahead and jump on into our meetings. First thing on the agenda, let's go ahead and call the roll and establish a quorum.
Mayor Rogers.
Here.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Present.
Councilmember Rogers. Let the record show that Mayor Rogers and Vice Mayor Alvarez are present with Councilmember Rogers absent.
Great. And for the minutes, we'll note the time when Councilmember Rogers does get a chance to join. We'll move on then to item number 2. That's our public comment for non-agenda items. If you'd like to leave a comment for something that's not on our agenda today, go ahead and hit the raise hand feature on your Zoom. And first and foremost, we have Eris.
Good afternoon, committee members. I'm the executive director of the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition, and I noticed that on your agenda, you're going to be talking about electrification of the city's fleet. And I just want to put another little bug in your ear. One of the other jurisdictions in the county is looking at purchasing some electric bicycles for part of their city fleet. Now, obviously, there's lots of uses for which a bike's not appropriate when, you've got, utility trucks and tools and things like that to schlep around. But for a lot of the getting across town for a meeting or to go look at a site or things like that, an electric bike can be quite a lovely option. So I just wanted to kind of throw that thought out there for you to contemplate as something the city might think of doing at some point in the near or far future. Thanks.
Thank you, Eris. And Bloomberg just had an article up called Like Basic Income, but for Transportation. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm sure you'd appreciate taking a look at it. I'll note for the record that Councilmember Rogers has been able to join us here as we start our meeting. Howdy, Councilmember. And Tasha, we'll go on to item number 3. That's our department reports.
Great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. So we have for item 4.1, department reports. I guess we've moved me up because I have future agenda items as number 5. At this time, we do not have any department reports. And so I just have my future agenda items later.
All right, we'll come back to it then. Let's go ahead and go on to item 4.1 then. That's the fleet activities update. And we've got Zach Brand, our fleet superintendent, who is ready to present.
I keep telling myself I'm ready to present. Thanks for having me. So I'm here today to just give you a little update on what we're doing over in fleet. Always very busy over here, keeping everything running. Our big item that we have, I think I've mentioned this before, we recently deployed a vehicle telematics program, which we're very excited about, and the information that it can provide. The city's long been a little lacking in information about how equipment and vehicles are actually used, and modern technology is giving us more data now, including start, stop times, vehicle use, idle times, driving habits, driving conditions, frequency of use, and typical items like that. It gives us several things, including like an EV functionality to analyze average vehicle use to determine if it is available for EV use. And we can make a recommendation based on data collected there. It also gives us emissions data to help keep all of our vehicles compliant with current emission laws, which is very handy. To date, we have approximately 400 units deployed and in service and collecting data. That's about half of the ones we intend on getting out there. We have about 900 pieces eligible. A lot of that's stationary equipment like generators and such, but we are moving rapidly on the rolling stock to collect data there. Just an example of some of the data that is provided from telematics. We can get items like safety scorecards tell you how drivers are operating, frequency of use, how often the vehicle is used. This lower one's pretty fascinating. It just gives you an idea what fuel prices is, how much you compared to idling, how much is actually driving, and so forth. It gives you a couple of other canned reports, puts it in dollars for those easy references so people know how much you're saving. This one is one of I'm excited about this. It tells you how often a vehicle is actually logging faults so we can address it promptly to keep vehicles operating properly. And again, idling duration listed by vehicles. This is actually, here's a kudos to transit, 20% average for transit buses, where the national average is closer to 25. So they're already doing a great job managing their idle times.
And Zach, I'm just going to pause you for a quick second. I don't know if it's just on my end, but it looks like the presentation isn't up and viewable.
Is it not on the screen?
No, can we get it? Can we get it share screened? There we go.
There we go.
If you could just, and I know it's on the website. The overview doesn't really need to. We don't need to see that again. But if you could back up, just sort of there you go to that slide to show folks what exactly you're talking about.
I do apologize. Again, these are just examples of what you can get out of the telematics system and is available to anybody operating. It's your scorecard that highlights low risk, medium risks, behaviors. Utilization for vehicles, how often they're used, how many miles are used, your idle dollars cost and idle time listed by days generally. And then the more specifics about putting it in dollars, highlighting emissions faults for vehicles. A lot of people don't understand how modern vehicles work, but they're constantly sampling how they're operating and they log faults all the time. But this will give us that notification so we can address those issues early. Idling cost, again, this is where I was referring to idle time for like our transit department, staying below that 20% mark, which is a very nice thing to be brag about. Last year, the city of Santa Rosa they started a pilot program putting in hybrid car vehicles for police patrol units. And we've had some really promising results from that. Specifically, the increase in fuel economy, which is clearly a decrease in fuel consumption. The results are so good that we just decided to go full force into it. We ordered another 28 vehicles on regular replacement schedule to be put out in service next year. Once we get those out, that will represent about half of our total patrol fleet. So a few more years after that, we should have the entire fleet rolled over into hybrids, which is going to save us about 20,000 gallons of gasoline per year or 196 tons CO2. Matches up to taking about 40 average US commuter cars off the road. And that's a pretty good target to hit. Along with the telematics program, one of the things we were able to do is enroll into the Bureau of Automotive Repair testing program, which, as I demonstrated in this early slide, it monitors the emissions system on vehicles up to 30 times a year. That's basically having a smog check done on your vehicle 30 times a year to make sure everything's operating properly and according to regulations. This is really awesome because it saves labor hours. So that's 200 hours a year that we don't have to put into doing smog tests. It does it automatically. And we are setting a standard for many other agencies looking at using this program. When we're looking at electrification for fleet vehicles, we've been monitoring the industry to see what's available, what's out there, and how we can use what is available. As I mentioned with telematics, it gives us information about what vehicles may or may not be suitable toward electrification. We should have sufficient data within the next year to really identify what vehicles can either be removed from fleet or can be converted to electric. Of course, some of the interesting challenges that we're forced to deal with is having available power sources. Running a grid into a lot with 500 vehicles is going to take a considerable amount of energy from PG&E. Charging vehicle chargers are about $2,500 a pop. When we're doing 400 vehicles, that's 400 chargers. And having landscape and real estate to actually install these EV chargers where people can use them. doing a cursory look at what the city of San Jose fleet currently uses. Obviously, the applicable vehicles are ones that people use to take home, which adds that added challenge of, okay, you take the vehicle home, do you charge it at home and then bring it to work, or do you bring it to work and leave it charging all day at work, and how's that going to work? So there's many logistical issues in the process, but we are clearly watching what other agencies are doing and what else is out there as far as technology to help determine our path. Lastly, what we're working on, some of you may have heard of this one before, there are some preferred purchasing policies out there, mostly done by the state, and I believe Sonoma County has a nice one, where when we do replacement vehicles, we have to look at doing an electric vehicle first. And if we're not going to do an electric vehicle, then we have to look at doing a plug-in hybrid vehicle. And if we can't come up with a reason we can't do a plug-in hybrid, then we'll go down to a hybrid vehicle. But we look at electrification first and work our way down before we move into purchasing another internal combustion engine type vehicle. And that's the short version. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, Councilmember, Vice Mayor. So Zach, I've got a couple of questions. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. For myself, I was wondering what options are there for the charging, for example, taking a vehicle home. I know that in the past, there was rebates that was given out by PG&E, I believe it was 20% reduction. It wasn't a CARE program, but something that would motivate a person to actually purchase a hybrid vehicle. Is there anything similar that we're exploring?
For vehicles used by city employees to take home for city purposes, I don't know if there's something actually out there that will support that. I think the benefit would be to the individual's home or the individual benefit. But I'm happy to look. I don't know exactly how that would work, but I'm happy to look into that and report back.
Well, what is the county doing? I think you mentioned the county's doing something similar.
They pool the county pools their vehicles at their corp yard. Typically, and they have a much more robust pool vehicle, so vans, small SUVs, small vehicles like that. Our fleet is more maintenance related, so it's more trucks, more dump trucks, more larger vehicles, and we have a few administrative type vehicles that get used around for some of the engineering staff, inspectors and such.
And a big kudos to especially our law enforcement vehicles. One of the things that council member, sorry, Natalie, I'm still getting used to titles, but one of the things that we noticed when we're working at the EOC yard were the amount of idle time that a police vehicle has in order to charge all their safety equipment. So this is great to see what improvements are being made.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Zach, my question is really sort of just from a usability standpoint. The system's cool, but it sounds to me like what it's really allowing us to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to build a roadmap for how we can electrify all of our fleet to the extent that it's possible going forward, both where we need to make the investments on the infrastructure as well as how we invest in each specific vehicle. I'm glad that the Vice Mayor used the example of police vehicles. That's one. Obviously, we've got police vehicles that are constantly roaming around the city, being ready to respond to any emergency that comes in, and that would just be a prime source for greenhouse gas reductions by investing in electric vehicles that meet their needs.
You hit the nail on the head. Enrolling in the telematics program is the first step in really identifying what we have, how we use it, and how we can improve it. And we're working on collecting that data to make those changes.
And does the public have a dashboard where they can sort of see the telematics program to see sort of what the city's data looks like? Or is that just something we'll have to come back and update the Climate Action Subcommittee on periodically?
That is a great idea, and it's been in the plan. I've seen other agencies doing something similar. Once we really get the telematics platform isolated and the data is clean and it can be presented, we plan on doing something like that.
Okay. Do you have a status update for us on the transportation yards efforts to set up the electrification for buses? I think it was late in the year we had thought that we'd be moving forward with setting up some of that infrastructure for a couple of the buses that were purchased.
I wish I could speak to that. That particular project's being handled by Transit Department directly. Yuri Coslin, I don't think he's here, would be the person to really speak up to that one.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we can get a brief update at our next meeting, just an informational item that goes out. Because I know a lot of people are tracking it pretty closely, trying to both invest in public transit and also make sure that we electrify it so that we are reducing greenhouse gas emissions on that front from the city as well.
I can start with a vicious rumor, but I think somebody's talking about like mid-22 before the buses are actually here. And I would expect the charging infrastructure to be here before that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was checking on. Because I heard the same thing, and I just want to make sure that the infrastructure is in place, ready to go. Do we have a partnership with Sonoma Clean Power around the charging stations? I know you quoted $2,500 a station. Are we working with them at all?
Negative.
Okay. Maybe
Well,
we can,
there are for when EV charging stations, there's two basic categories. There's public operated, where general public can use them and pay for service, and then there's fleet operated, which is more just in our house here, where it's only going to be for our vehicles. So typically with the coalitions and such, we don't see fleet getting looped into that. But with our cooperatives out there where we can actually purchase the chargers and install them on our property.
okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a partnership to be had there now that we've moved over to the Evergreen program. And I know that they're heavily invested in reducing greenhouse gas emissions with us.
I can look into that.
All right, I appreciate that. Vice Mayor, Council Member, anything else before I go to public comment? Okay, if you are interested in providing comment on this item, go ahead and hit the raise hand feature on your Zoom. All right, I'm not seeing any hands. Roberta, did we have any voicemails or emails?
We did not.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Zach. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So Tasha, we'll move on to our last item here. Obviously, it's a very quick meeting that we're having today. It's future agenda items. And I appreciate staff has put together a list similar to what we've started to do or what we do with the council to give folks sort of an indication of what's coming up next. For folks who are tuning into the meeting, what should they expect as we roll into the new year in early January and in February?
Great. Thank you very much. And as Mayor Rogers said, my name is Tasha Wright, and my title is Energy and Sustainability Coordinator, and I'm in the Water Department. I have a little update, like we discussed, not only about the future agenda items, but I also wanted to let you all know what we are currently doing to support the Climate Action Subcommittee and how we are bringing forward these future agenda items. So we've reconvened the monthly check-in meetings with staff from various departments. That was something that we had done several years ago. And so we are reinvigorating that effort. And essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be coordinating agenda items. It'll be a feed through opportunity. And there'll be items specifically for the Climate Action Subcommittee and other internal work products that will come out of that group meeting of staff. So we'll be updating our internal tracking mechanisms for all the measures that we have in the Climate Action Plan, as well as the Municipal Action Plan. So we have just a very simple process of tracking. So we have those measures. We will be having staff update for the department, the progress that they're making on those measures. And then, as would make sense, when we have some great updates, we'll be bringing them forward to this subcommittee. So we are, as a process of that, we are identifying potential items for next year. And these items will include both updates on the citywide climate action plan measures And also we will have other community-wide agency partners that we'll bring in for updates as well. And so what's happening within the community and our partnerships and the progression we're making towards our climate action goals and measures will be provided for you. So we're really excited about that. And I know that there was a comment about the EV bikes, and there is interest in having Yuri come forward with an update. So those are actually on our future agenda items list. And I am going to go ahead and screen so that you will be able to see some of those items here. So we're going to be expecting that we will have that report out in early 2022. The city EV buses update and transit electrification. We've had a LED streetlight project that's been in place, and so we'll provide an update on that as well, along with our Evergreen implementation. That's been about a year now. So we'll be able to talk about some of the positive effects of that, and we'll provide you with some numbers translated into GHG reductions. So that's going to be exciting. I'd also like to bring in the Climate Center, as well as the county with county updates and city collaboration, as well as we're hoping to hear an update from Amy on the gas station ordinance, and update on the bike and pedestrian master plan implementation. And you can see the rest here, GHG inventory update. That's something that we have worked with RCPA, and they've established years ago the baseline, and then they help us track over time and our progress. So there's been talk about carbon sequestration. So what I'm hoping to have is we have our biosolids to land application. I'd like to see an update on that and how that is helping, because that is a carbon sequestration measure. We also have, as you know, Joey Henowitz, who's been working with Recology, both on zero waste and the contract that the city has with Recology. So we'll bring him back with additional updates. I'd like to see the Urban Land Institute provide us with a report, and countywide ad hoc and climate measures that are taking place in general, fire resiliency. And we also want to give an update about the fare-free boosting of the transit ridership and what is happening with that. And as we had mentioned earlier, the zero emissions bus rollout plan, that would be, kind of the before and middle and after. That's what I really want to do with our project, so we can keep the public and this group, as well as city council, up to date on the measures that we are progressing on. And then we will also periodically let you know about various citywide events or even community events that focus on our efforts and sustainability within our community. So when those things are happening, and hopefully we'll be back to a little bit more normalcy soon, where we can begin those public events again as well. So, and I think that's it. Thank you very much.
All right. Let's start with Councilmember Rogers.
So, thank you for that. Will this be a standing item that will always be on the agenda, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. And also, I noticed that the gas station, and I'm asking for a friend, I'm asking for a couple of friends. I noticed that the gas station item says spring. So is there a reason why it's not early? because spring turns into summer, summer turns into fall, and then we're back to winter. So I do know that there are a few ordinances that are already up and going around us, and so I'm just wondering how much, like we've requested people to hold on a little bit because we've had a lot on staff plate. You know, staff have had a lot to do. But as soon as the year changed, that we were going to try to get that rolling. And so I'm just wondering why we're at spring now. Crickets, come on.
Tasha, is that on?
Do you want me to go for that one?
Go for it.
Well, I don't want to speak out of turn, and I believe Amy Nicholson is on this this call, this Zoom meeting. So I'm hoping she might be able to hop in if she's available. You there, Amy?
I'm trying to promote her to our panelist. 1 moment.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. I believe that we had placed that in for spring because the council was going to be looking at the 6-month priority setting sometime in March. So that's my recollection for why that spring date is on there, that we would be looking at adding that into the advanced planning work plan.
All right, and Natalie, I'll work with staff and we'll see if we can move that up. It actually, if that's the only holdup, we already have support from council for moving forward, so we can bring it prior to goal setting. But I'll check with staff and make sure that there isn't another reason to it.
Okay, and Amy, thank you for knowing why.
Sure.
Thanks.
Vice Mayor, anything to add?
No, sir.
Okay. Yeah, and Councilmember Rogers, I was going to ask the same question, so I'm glad you brought that up. We'll definitely work with staff to see how we bring that faster, since it's been a high interest item and the council overall has given the thumbs up towards moving forward. Let's go to public comment and see if there are any hands to discuss our future agenda items. All right, seeing none. I do see that Yuri joined the call. Happy to see if he had an update, if he was summoned or if he's just accidentally falling into a meeting where he was mentioned earlier. I'm not quite sure, so I apologize if we're putting you on the spot, Yuri. But we were talking earlier to see if anybody knew sort of the update around when the infrastructure investments would be done at the transit hub to be able to electrify the bus fleet.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I was not, I had a conflict, but I was able to get free of my conflict, so I figured I would check in and stay in touch with what was going on. And yeah, we hope, like Tasha said, we hope to give you guys a full update in February or March, but we are, the city CIP team has hired the contractors, and they're working with PG&E, and we expect that work to be done sometime in March. We expect that the charging infrastructure to be in place sometime around March, and we expect our first electric buses to be operational sometime in fall of 2022. We hope to get them on site sometime in summer of 2022. So those are the general timeframes. So that'll preview what we present to you when we come before you and give a presentation.
Cool. All right, I appreciate that. All right, council member, vice mayor, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn today's meeting. Go ahead, council member.
That would be me. Really quickly, I just want to say that I rode the bus today, and it looks like hopefully ridership is increasing from what I see on my route. So I'm hoping that we can get our fleet electrified soon and start to increase the number of buses that we have coming through, because it looks like people are really getting back on the buses. So I'm really excited to see that the buses were a lot fuller than they were even just a few months ago. So to see it all coming together is really exciting.
And I can give a really quick sort of update around that just from my SCTA hat. But we had a meeting about the future of public transit a couple of weeks ago. And it was reported that we are at about 80% of our bus routes are back up and running, and about 60% of the ridership. But I know that continues to grow. I was on the SMART train about a week ago, and one of the conductors told me that they had just had one of their highest days since COVID. And I was pretty excited to hear that as well. So hopefully things are coming back.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say, please, anybody out there who knows of anybody who wants to drive a bus, the city's hiring. That's one of our key factors for returning the level of service that we had pre-pandemic.
I'm going to put in a clarification for you, Yuri. Anybody qualified to drive a bus? Because I tried and Rachel told me I wasn't qualified and wasn't allowed.
Get fired.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll go ahead and adjourn. Have a good night.
All right. Night.
Thank you.